Hi everyone, welcome to the best recapped movie. Edge of Tomorrow is an apocalyptic movie in the science fiction genre, and today, we are going to share a recap of this mysterious and exciting movie with you. Aliens from a planet attack the Earth, and the world forms a united army against these creatures. In this way, Major Cage, the public affairs officer, is inadvertently sent to the front line of the war and gets involved in mysterious events related to the war's end and the destruction of the Mimics. Spoilers ahead. In 2015, aliens called Mimics entered Germany via an asteroid and quickly conquered most of Europe. General Brigham, the leader of the American Army, warns that if these creatures are not stopped in Paris, the war will come to London, New York, and Tokyo. So in 2020, a global consensus, a global military coalition called the UDF will be established to fight the threat of aliens. Humans finally achieved a great victory after 5 years by using new mechanical suits. William Bill Cage, U.S. Army Media Relations, explains that Operation Annihilation will be the biggest mechanized attack in human history, and assures that a great victory is coming. After that, Cage enters London, and after waking up in a helicopter, he meets General Brigham. He talks to Cage about the upcoming operation in France. He says that a lot of soldiers are going to be killed tomorrow, and people will probably blame him, so he is looking for a new scenario. He orders Cage to go to war with the first ship, but since Cage has no combat experience, he opposes and says he will not take orders from him. Brigham explains that he has already spoken to his commanders and must now obey. When Cage realizes that he has no choice but to accept this order, he threatens that if this operation fails, he will do something that people will blame him for. This makes Brigham angry, and he orders Cage to be arrested, and Cage is stopped by an electric shock while escaping. When he wakes up, he finds himself at Heathrow Airport, now a military base, and realizes he has been demoted to a soldier. Master Sergeant Farrell arrives, and after introducing himself, Cage says he is an American officer. Still, Farrell does not believe him and says that this is an operational area and no officer is brought here. Cage says he needs to contact his commanders in Washington as soon as possible and asks him to make a phone connection for him. Farrell shows him the way, but when they arrive, Cage realizes he will not take him to the phone room. He takes a letter from his pocket and says his name was the only honest thing he told him. According to the letter, Cage is a deserter soldier, so he will make him a member of an inappropriate squad called J. Farrell notices the soldiers playing cards without paying attention to the rules. As punishment, he forces Skinner, Kimmel, Ford, Griff, Kuntz, and Nance, members of the squad, to eat a card each. The next day, the time for their deployment comes. They equip themselves with mechanical suits designed to fight with Mimics. Still, Cage says he doesn't know how to use this mechanical suit, and Griff says you must do something about it. Sergeant Rita Vertasky, the famous hero of the fight against Mimics, is also preparing for this war, and the soldiers board military planes in groups to be sent to the war zone. While there are only 2 minutes before the launch, Cage is sweating because of fear, and Skinner jokingly tells him, "I think something is wrong with your clothes." He says, "The body is inside it," and everyone laughs at Cage and makes fun of him. A moment later, the plane is suddenly targeted. While the soldiers are released themselves, Cage sees that Kuntz is shot and killed. He decides to jump, and immediately after his arrival, he sees Kimmel, who was killed by a plane. Cage doesn't know what to do, gasps and falls to the ground in an unpredictable accident. He sees Rita bravely fighting the Mimics and destroying them, but shortly after, she is killed by a fatal shot in front of his eyes. Cage goes back, but Farrell stops him and forces him to continue, and as he joins the group, a Mimic appears behind and attacks them. All the soldiers are killed except for Cage, who finally succeeds in destroying the alien and is happy about it, unaware that many of them are arriving there. At first, they don't notice Cage's presence, and he tries to use an explosive bomb to destroy them, but one of the Mimics, which has a different appearance and blue eyes, attacks Cage. After he detonates the bomb, the blood of that Mimic falls on his face, and his eyes turn black. Cage dies, but strangely, he wakes up again at Heathrow Airport, and what happened to him before are repeated exactly as before. Farrell takes Cage to J Squad again, and the same events and conversations are strangely repeated. Cage is confused, and the next morning, when Griff equips him with a mechanical battle suit, he asks if he has worn this suit before, and Cage answers maybe. They fly, and the same things happen again. Cage warns Kimmel about his death, but it is too late, and he is killed. A little later, when Rita is fighting with aliens, he throws himself at her to stop her from being killed, but this time, the bullet that hit Rita hits Cage. A Mimic comes out from under the soil and kills him. Cage wakes up again at Heathrow Airport, and the same events happen again, and he seems to be stuck in a time loop. This time, Cage tries to inform Pharrell about future events, and when he is taken to the squad, he knows the names of the soldiers and predicts the future. He even tells Pharrell that they are playing cards, and he knows that he is forcing them to eat the cards. Cage says that he knows something that their lives depend on and they should listen to him, but again, he is ignored, and this time, they send him to the battlefield while gluing his mouth. When he lands, he rushes to save Kimmel, but this time he is killed under the plane and repeats again. After repeating it several times, he saves him. In the next repetition, he manages to save Rita and asks her to take them to the beach because they will all be killed and must leave here. He asks her to hurry up, or the plane will explode, but Rita says find me when you wake up, then both of them will be killed by the plane explosion. When he wakes up, Pharrell takes him to the squad and Cage hides cards that are seen on the bed. Pharrell asks the squad members to watch Cage so he doesn't escape. Still, Cage explains that he will not escape and in a normal behavior agrees to participate in the training. It is clear that Cage has woken up several times and plans to escape. While punished, Cage escapes from the cars passing by and goes to the military base where Rita is training. He tells her that she told him to find her when he wakes up, then Rita says follow me while she is fully aware of what happened. She says that the things that happened to Cage also happened to her, and she experienced this, but now she has lost them and asks him not to discuss this issue with anyone. She then takes him to Dr. Carter, a biologist. After he is sure what happened to Cage is the same as what happened to Rita, he unveils a system he has secretly designed. He explains that the mimics are superorganisms where, Omega, their brain, control them. At the same time, the alphas are a rare species. When killed, the Omega starts over. Cage has inadvertently acquired the ability to reset time through exposure to alpha blood. Rita says the creature wants us to believe we can win. Cage is shocked to hear these words and says he should talk to the Colonel about them. Still, Rita considers talking about it with others useless, and says she has already tried. All Cage has to do is find and kill Omega to end the alien invasion. He will have dreams showing him the location of Omega, but Cage is still unconvinced. Rita tells him that she had this ability in Verdun and used it to win the battle before being wounded and injected with blood. She asks him to take her there, but Cage says he is not trained to fight, so she trains Cage in many other time loops to be superior in battle. He has to be trained so that he doesn't get hurt at all, and every time he has the slightest damage or break, Rita kills him so that Cage can try again. In one of these time cycles, he visualizes a dream in a mountainous area in Germany, so he reports this to Dr. Carter in the next time cycle. The next morning, he fight with Rita on the battlefield against the mimics, but each time, one somehow dies. They review a plan to get through there in different time cycles. Still, it is useless, and Cage decides to escape from the base and return to the city. On a rainy night, he makes this decision, but Skinner comes by and says they looked everywhere for you and wants to stop Cage, but his fighting skills have increased to such an extent that he easily knocks him out. He goes to London by motorbike, and when he goes to a cafe to have a drink, it doesn't take long before the electricity in the city goes out. Cage is sure that by winning the war, the mimics will attack the city, and there is no safe place. He looks into the water from the bridge, and then they will come out and kill him. He realizes that there is no other choice but to continue, and every time, he tries to move forward with Rita in each time cycle until they reach an abandoned area after crossing the battlefield. Cage suggests that they should escape by car because there are a lot of mimics lurking there. He does not find the key to the car he is going to escape with, so they have to escape with the car Rita is driving. A little later, an alien appears from the cabin attached to the back of the car, but luckily, Cage manages to shoot it down. Along the way, he tells her that she doesn't talk much, but eventually, she talks to him. Rita says she doesn't like to talk, and then by telling her some information about Rita's personal life, it turns out that Cage knows about her to some extent. The car runs out of fuel, so they must continue on foot. Cage removes the mechanical suit from himself and enters a home. After passing through there, they reach an abandoned warehouse, where a helicopter is in the space behind it, attracting Rita's attention. Cage doesn't want to use it, but Rita insists they continue with the helicopter. She feels pain, and it is clear that she was injured in the fight with them. When Cage takes care of his wound, he says it's getting dark. They should spend the night in that farm's house, but she believes this is the end, and says it hurts and decides to send Cage to the next cycle by killing him, but Cage says, "Wait, coffee is ready, I am looking for the key." Rita gives him 10 minutes and realizes from his behavior that they have experienced this before and asks where the keys are. Cage says he could fly the helicopter but is working on landing it. Still, he explains that she can't use it because she will be killed as soon as she turns on the helicopter and says that this is her endpoint. She refuses, goes to the helicopter, and turns on the helicopter despite Cage's warning. They attack her, and in a predictable incident, Cage manages to destroy it. But unfortunately, Rita is seriously injured. A little later, the mimics arrive, Cage is killed, and the time cycle repeats. This time when he sees her, he avoids introducing himself to her and leaves there. The incidents repeat themselves, with the difference that he tries to travel alone this time. He goes by helicopter to a dam in the mountains in an area of Germany that he had seen before, and after entering, he moves toward the part he saw in the dream. When he gets to the top of the water tank, he sees a Alpha. After being attacked by it, he realizes that the Alpha is trying to get his powers back, so Cage drowns himself on purpose. In the next time cycle, together with Rita, they inform Carter about this, and he explains that there is no other way because they probably want to get their power back. According to Carter, 2 audio transmitters can detect the location of Omega. Still, one was in General Brigham's office when he was researching this issue. Hence, Cage and Rita decided to infiltrate the Ministry of Defense, and Carter says it needs the blood of a living Alpha to work, but since Cage has the blood of an Alpha in his body, Rita says he doesn't need it. They go there several times until they manage to enter Brigham's room, and he is shocked to see Cage. Despite how ridiculous it may seem initially, Cage explains the whole story to Brigham and promises it will make more sense the further they go. He tries to convince Brigham of what is going on by anticipating his room phone ringing and his details and revealing his secretary's name. However, Rita decides to shoot him like last time. Still, Cage asks her to hold back, then tells Brigham that this is not their first meeting, and the only way to save humanity is what is inside that safe box. Brigham takes that voice transmitter out of the safe box, and Cage says to leave the rest to me because you don't have the necessary conditions to attack there. However, when they leave the Ministry of Defense, Brigham orders their arrest and Rita kills Cage until they find a solution for it in the next time cycle. Finally, they succeed when they escape in the parking lot, and Cage puts down it in his leg. His eyes go black, and he visualizes a dream. He learns that Omega, the core and controller of all mimics, is in the underwater Louvre. When he regains consciousness, they fail to escape, and a soldier equipped with a mechanical suit stops them. He wakes up in the treatment camp and sees that his hands are tied and they are taking blood from him. Since he knows that he may lose his abilities by doing this, he throws himself on the ground. There is a sound of fighting from outside, and he sees someone approaching him. He thinks it is a soldier, but she is Rita. She frees him, and they quickly get out of there, but they know they need a plane to go to Paris and, of course, a soldier to support them. As Skinner and Kimmel predictably search for Cage to find him, he shows up and convinces him to take him to the squad. Then, knowing private things about their lives, he convinces the squad members to accompany them to Paris. Since only one chance is left to save the world, all of them agree and finally escape from the Heathrow military base and fly to Paris. There is so much hope among them that they are all determined to do this. Then, as they approach the Louvre Museum, the exchange of fire between the group and them becomes intense until they decide to release. Cage lands in the water and gets out before he drowns. After a while he finds Rita and joins the 3 survivors of the squad. There is a dangerous route to reach the Louvre Museum, full of mimics, but Cage believes that the plane's engines are still intact and he can move there with it. Skinner clears the path, and together with Griff, they decide to buy time for them to go to the museum. With the help of Rita and Ford, Cage manages to start the plane's engine, and while the mimics are getting closer, Griff and Skinner stop them by sacrificing themselves and detonating a bomb. Ford also loses his life to support them, and the plane collides with the museum's glass pyramid at high speed. They fall out, and Cage says they have experienced worse incidents before. Then, while a large crowd of mimics are following them, he blocks the way with an explosion, and after they fall, she is in Cage's arms. He points out that Omega hides underwater and hides behind a rock because an Alpha is guarding it. Rita thanks him, gives him a grenade magazine, and says, "I wish I knew you better." Then they kiss each other and separate. She tries to create conditions for the destruction of Omega by diverting Alpha. Still, unfortunately, she is killed, and Cage jumps into the water while holding grenades. While he tries to activate the grenade, Alpha kills him, but he has already activated the grenades. Finally, Omega is destroyed after a huge explosion, and all the mimics are destroyed with his destruction. When he wakes up, the repeating cycle of time no longer exists, and he sees himself in a helicopter in London, just like at the beginning of the movie. They welcome him and inform him about the end of the war. Cage sees Rita's photo on the wall and sees on TV that General Brigham announces the war's end. Even though they do not know the main reason for the aliens' defeat, they are sure that the enemy has lost its ability to fight and has been destroyed. Cage looks at J Squad's training while the badge of a major is on his shoulders, and after that, he decides to visit Rita. She gets up and says, "Yes. What do you want?" Cage smiles, and the movie ends. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.